Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, we are talking about these beautiful, beautiful archetypes that have kind of been left in the wind and have not gotten support in quite a minute and fully deserve it. I love making these videos. They're one of my favorite videos to make, period. But here's the thing. I made a video like this prior to 2023 saying these are archetypes that I gave you 10 archetypes that hopefully would get support in 2023. And I'll say it, I'm doing pretty well so far. We've hit on two of them, Unchained and Satellar Knights. And we could be days away from getting Volcanics revealed for the Legendary Duelist, Fire. So I could already be hitting 3 out of 10, which, you know, if I hit 5 out of 10 on the year, I will be stoked. But the whole point of this video is I want to throw 5 more archetypes out there that were not on that list. There were a handful of archetypes that I really thought were close, almost wanted to throw on there. And since we've already crossed them off the list, why not throw 5 more? And as I was thinking about it, I was like, you know what? These deserve to be on there. And I also just really was itching to make another one of these videos. So let's get into it. We're only doing 5 here. I'm not going to spend too much time on any of the 5, but let's get into it. And obviously, if you have any of your own archetypes that you think fit this list, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below what archetypes you think deserve and you would want to see support in 2023 for. But let's get into it. First and foremost is Penguins. This one's the last one on my list because I'm just not as pumped about this one as I am for the other 4. But it is still one that I'm pumped for. I'm not going to lie. If you don't know, this card was like the first of the Penguin cards, the newest ones in the last couple of years to get revealed. And since then, we have gotten the Ninja Penguin, the Squire Penguin, and the Priest Penguin. But we have not gotten the Little Magician Penguin Girl and the Fighter Penguin here. So, we already have a setup for at least 2 new cards, and that doesn't include any potential spell or trap cards, like bonus cards, because we got the Penguin continuous spell that just is a rota for Penguin cards. Like, why did we need that? We didn't, but we got it, so whatever. And I just think they're cool. I do think they have a couple of really nice cards. I mean, Brave himself is not a bad card. Squire's actually a decent extender. Penguin Soldier, if you have a way to quick flip him, a double compulse is still pretty decent in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! So and plus a rota, right? So they have a handful of cards. They kind of work with generic synchro, generic water stuff as well. So keep an eye on it. It's something if they got the right 2 cards that like push the engine or more, then maybe it could be something kind of interesting. But it's more of a fun deck than anything, and they're cute, they're awesome, and I want to see these cards printed. But until then, they're going to stay on the list. Number 4 on the list, Burning Abyss. I have finally come around. This is an archetype that I've thought about a bunch of times when making these lists, and I left it off because they had gotten Cherubini, and they are so generic, not generic, but able to be splashed. We saw them splashed with Phantom Knight stuff and a bunch of other packages over the last couple of years. And so they had still seen a little bit of play and been like an okay rogue deck, a couple of years ago. But now I think they're hitting the point where they are just outright power crept. They haven't had enough stuff that really synergizes with them as of late. And so I'd like to see something boost their engine. Now, this is the one that I think out of this list, more than any of the others, Konami would have to be super careful about, right? The whole deck floats. That's terrifying. And so they would have to make it fair but good at the same time. I don't know the best way to do that without making this deck go crazy, but it is still something I want to see help for, I don't know if it's another extra deck monster that they can end on pretty easily, and maybe it's a more pure variant that only allows you to make it kind of thing. I don't know, but I want to see something. I do like Burning Abyss. I always have, but, they have their downsides, and we'll see. They're just power crept out. They need help, but yeah, Burning Abyss has finally made its way onto my list here. So, kind of down. Hopefully Burning Abyss support at some point. And Cherubini came out for them, but Cherubini was abused in so many other better decks. Cherubini was not even that good in pure Burning Abyss. Way better in other archetypes, which is a bummer. So that's the most recent support card, and it didn't even help the deck that much as a pure variant. So yeah. All right, number 3, Magistus. I'm huge on this one as well. I think this one could happen soon. Konami's been doing this thing where they're going around and giving support to archetypes that are only 2 to 3-ish years old. Unchained just got support A bunch of other ones did too. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but like Unchained is a perfect example, right in the same range as Magistus when it came out. And Magistus is so cool, right? It has a bunch of lore from like all these other spellcast archetypes kind of like weaved in together. That's so cool. And on top of that, I think Magistus could be the catalyst to kind of make an actual like spellcaster good stuff deck legitimately viable in the TCG, right? Or just the game in general. Spellbook Engine. Pretty decent engine, right? Like, especially now that Judgment is unbanned and they, Fate is a pretty powerful card and they have some consistency cards, some really good stuff there. Dogmatica, really nice as well, extending you and adding ceiling to your engine. And then you have Magistus. And Magistus just always felt like one or two pieces away from really being smooth. It's one of those archetypes that it's kind of hard to exactly pinpoint for me right now exactly the issue for them, and there probably is. If I spent more time, I could probably find the exact issue, but it just kind of feels like the deck is rough. It doesn't smoothly transition into plays. Its extenders discard, but it's a deck that doesn't want to run out of cards in hand. The extenders are fine, but it doesn't feel like there's a great enough payoff just yet to get to it. They have a cool boss monster, but he only selectively negates certain extra deck monsters. So game one, depending on the matchup, he could just not even be good if you're going first. He could just be useless if your opponent's not playing the kind of deck you kind of set up for. There's a bunch of weird things here, but I do think it is in contention to get a good piece of support soon, and I hope it does, because it just deserves it. And especially since it's so interweaved with all these other archetypes' lores, it seems like that's the perfect thing for Konami. Konami loves to go in on like lore-heavy archetypes, so hopefully they do. We'll see what they do, but yeah, definitely Magistus on my list here. Number 4, or I guess number 2, if we're working our way down, Trickstars. I like Trickstars. I think they're a cool engine. I thought I played against them when they were like meta way back in the day, and it was the worst. But that was because the game was slow enough where they were just like actually burning you for game, and it was terrible. They just had a really good resource loop. All their cards were like +1s, but now they're so power crept out. They are just so weak, and especially now that they just like do not have a win condition. I mean, this is an archetype that just like downright straight up does not own a win condition at all. Your win condition is like burn, or like I guess reincarnation, a one of card that your opponent has to have in their deck to play. Like that's your win condition. It's so bad. So what I'd like to see here is something win condition, something that gives you interruption, because that's one thing that they don't do great of. Like reincarnation is something, but it's not a legit interruption unless you're seeing it with like Droll, right, in an insane fashion that way. And so I'd love to see them get a win condition, and maybe a new link that's a link 2 or a link 3 that like has a legit interruptive effect. That actually gives you a legit payoff. I mean, Candine is a free +1, but putting 2 Trickstars on the field doesn't do anything, since we don't have like Verte Anaconda to just make a free, DP or Dragoon or anything. So their engine needs to get you somewhere, and that's mainly it. I think if their engine got you somewhere, it's a generic enough engine where like you could just support it, and it would just be a good enough engine. You could probably end up playing, I don't know, stuff like Runics beside it, a bunch of hand traps beside it, but the engine's just better than it used to be, and actually see some success. I really think you could, but we'll have to see. Still got bigger weaknesses than that. Maybe it needs more than just one good card that interrupts, and maybe it'd need 2 or 3 new cards, but either way, I would be happy with just the one, but we'll see. And number 1, and this one I'm kind of cheating on, it's Magnet Warriors. You guys know I love Magnet Warriors, one of my favorite archetypes in the game, but unfortunately they have, and forever been, ass. They're ass. They're really awful. Without going too in-depth, this deck came out right next to ABC. The same, like they came out structure decks side by side. ABCs were immediately meta. This deck was not. ABCs had an amazing boss monster that was very easy to get to. This deck had a pretty powerful boss monster, but just like you could not get to it. Via engine specifically, but you would have to like draw a very specific hand and play like stuff like just hard copies of Poly and stuff like that. It was terrible. Your other boss monsters, Berserkion in the main deck, he is not a quick effect, and his like float effect is way worse than ABC Dragon Busters. So I would love to see this deck get a boss monster akin to ABC Dragon Buster, because I do think the 3 main deck about Electromagnet Warriors are actually pretty insane. And so if we just got the right main deck monsters, and if they want to give us our own contact fusion, just like ABCs have, that would also be phenomenal. That would be so good. But until we see that, it's just like an interesting cluster of cards where you're like, oh, that's a decent card. Oh, that's a decent card. And then you read the 3 mana monsters, you're like, whoa, these cards are crazy. If they had the right archetype around them, they could be nuts. They do not have that, and so they're poop. Hopefully we get, a good scoop on this poop soon to hopefully, line it up for something, just to be rogue at least. But that's my dream. Like, this is like the archetype I would want to see more than anything else. But yeah, there you go. Those are the 5 archetypes that I did not have on my list at the beginning of the year. So there might be other archetypes that you're like, how did he forget Cosmos? Well, Cosmos were on my list at the beginning of the year. Ogdo Attic, Battery Man, a couple of those other archetypes. So if you want to watch that video, go back and see. Just to keep tabs on how well we're doing on the year to see how many we get right. But yeah. Hopefully you like this video. I just like doing these. They're just really fun to talk about because every player has their dream archetype that's just not good enough right now. And if it did get support, if you woke up the next morning and saw it got like really good cards revealed, you would just be dancing. And I have a lot of those because I love this game and I love a ton of different archetypes. But yeah. This is my list for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, as always. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff like this from your boy down the line. And let me know your thoughts down below. What archetypes do you want to see? What would your top 5 be going forward? And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.